You're unmuted.
Are we missing two people?
Oh, it's
Video's good. It's up.
Sam had a conflict in a family emergency. She's on the road and may call in later. And then I think Sam said she freed up at 7, but we'll see how fast we get through this.
Move it all to the consent agenda.
But we still have a minute till 6. So
We gotta fix that clock, Mr. Mayor.
yeah, the 2 clocks. So the battery just died in my kitchen clock.
I think that's Mel's phone there.
Yep.
All right, we're at 6 o'clock. It is Tuesday, April 11th at 6 p.m. This is a regular city council meeting of Barre City. The council present tonight included Councilor Deering, Councilor Booton, Councilor Wozniak, and Councilor Lozon in the room. And Councilor Wozniak, you said that.
Yep,
Oh yeah,
lower, yeah.
and Councilor Sean Bell is joining us by phone, and Councilor Stockwell had a conflict but is planning to join at 7 p.m. Tonight's agenda is available online in the back of the room. The meeting has been publicly posted, is being recorded and subject to Vermont's open meeting law and the council's rules of procedure, which are available online. Welcome to everybody joining us tonight. And to those of you joining us online, please keep in mind that the chat function should only be used for technical issues or difficulties. The city offers online access as a convenience, and we will continue the meeting if any technical difficulties occur. Please raise your hand or signal if you'd like to be recognized and speak into your microphone. Otherwise, if you're online, stay muted. And if you're here in the room, a reminder to come forward on the microphone. I'll call in speakers in order, allowing those who haven't spoken yet to speak first and limiting time if necessary to do the city's business. Also a reminder to just state your name for the record so Clerk Dawes can know who to credit in the minutes. If you have any questions about process or procedures, please ask and we'll get it sorted. And thanks to everybody in advance for participating in the civil way. Are there any adjustments to the agenda, Manager Sterling Castro?
Yes, Mayor. So I emailed the council this afternoon requesting a new item 4G to the consent agenda, which is a lease finance for plow truck and excavator. And the materials were emailed to you, and they're also on your desks. There's the finance terms as well as the resolution. And then I believe we're removing 8B and requesting also an executive session on the topic of real estate as part of item 11.
Sir, we've had
We
that
just
on.
note that
Councilor
Councilor Chambel seems to be in a moving vehicle. I don't think that's, so I admire your dedication. I don't think it's ever been
It
done.
looks like a bus. It looks like a bus.
I'm impressed.
She's muted, so we can't.
That's a dedicated public servant on public transport, that is.
Councilor Booton?
Is there a reason we've had to discuss the water and wastewater intermunicipal agreements on twice now and remove them? Is there a reason why they?
Well, yeah,
it's
part of
on-
the, I can explain. So, in discussions between the manager and me, I've been getting more background and realized that I need to do a little bit more homework to frame that discussion in a good way. Part of that is because related to billings that can occur under the intermunicipal agreement and also accounting regulations. So I was just talking with the president of the Government Finance Officers Association for Vermont today. Would also like to touch base with Dawn or Nicholas a little bit more about that. And I had asked for this not to be on the agenda this week. I think my timing was off though, and it appeared on the agenda. So
You do realize that we got sued over this, right?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have those legal documents? We're gonna want those legal
yeah,
documents.
absolutely. I think we want to know billings. We want to know the agreement, and then we just got our
The
update.
court order, mediation.
Yeah.
There's a lot behind this, and
Yeah.
we could be opening ourselves up for legal issues. So I hope that we get some attorney information on that,
Like,
because
what legal question do you want to ask
we
an
were
attorney?
sued.
Yeah.
We were sued.
Yeah,
And,
but you can
and
be
I
sued
just
for
want to make,
anything, yeah. So,
we were sued and we lost, I think.
yeah,
We had to do, but we were required to do
Yeah.
mediation because of it. So I just want to make sure that we're not opening up, if we mess with that, we're not opening up that issue. I think it was like $700,000.
yeah, I would
Is that
certainly
correct?
hope that this is all about us using ARPA funds for our water wastewater enterprise in a way for a generalized benefit that all ratepayers should share in an equitable way. And I absolutely am delaying this because I want to make sure that I am not approaching this in an irresponsible way. But I do think it's really important that the ratepayers in Berry City get a fair shake. And particularly if we're going to be doing capital infusions, as we have done, using ARPA funds into the water and wastewater enterprise, or wastewater enterprise.
We just want to make sure that we have like the audit, all the stuff that happened, because my understanding, there was a lot that went into that. So, but I wasn't on the
Do we have an
council
audit
at the
recently?
time.
Is there a most recent audit of the fund
Oh, no, the
No,
audit
you're
from
saying
2007 where we were.
from the legal action?
Right, because we were audited because of the commingling of funds. And that's the reason why we were court mandated for the agreement.
I'm sure we'll have to ask Oliver for the records.
But yeah, I think it's absolutely good to have that diligent approach for anything like that with sensitivity, and particularly anything related to ordinances or intermunicipal agreements or contracts. We always have to be careful. So, but also, I think we can find a way to get to a fair way to do capital infusions that is shared among the ratepayers, not just by Berry City residents. Are there any other adjustments to the agenda? All right, so that takes us to visitors and communication. This is an opportunity to speak to an item that is not on the agenda tonight. If you're here to speak to an item that is not, or that is on the agenda, you can raise your hand while we take up that item of business. Joellen Mulvaney.
All right, hold on, let me get can you hear me? Hi, thank you. Joellen Mulvaney from Pleasant Street in the north end of Berry City. I want to thank Mayor Jake Hemmerich for guiding us through some very difficult conversations and difficult times. Your style is a marked departure from previous administrations, and it's been, I appreciate that you've begun to restore some of the balance between the commercial business needs and residents' needs. You changed the tone of leadership here into a kinder, more gentler, inclusive community. This has not been without challenges, I know. Speaking from experience and also from witnessing, some of the slings and arrows that have been thrown at you as well. But you've been standing in the face of those challenges, and it's given us an example of the kind of leadership that seeks to collaborate, not dominate, discuss civilly, not bully, and raise issues, not personal attacks. I've been a resident of Berry City for over 40 years, and I've witnessed the deterioration both of meeting protocols and civil discourse. Mayor Hemmerich, you have reminded us there is another way, and I look forward to electing the next mayor who shares your values and style. I think she might. Thank you.
Thank you, Joellen. Are there any other items for visitors and communications? All right, hearing and seeing none, that takes us to our, John LePage. If you could come forward to the microphone, Mr. LePage.
Hearing it's dead anyway, so I'm having trouble hearing myself. I just want to make sure that the issue about moving town meeting day, is that already on the agenda?
That's on the agenda it's warned for 7:00 p.m. under new business 8C.
Okay.
So we haven't taken that up yet.
All right, I didn't get a chance to read the agenda first, so that I'm good. I can take my seat as long
Okay,
as that's
all
on
right.
the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LePage. So the consent agenda we have, if there are no other items for visitors and communication, going once, going twice. All right, we have a consent agenda with approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. We had ratification of the city warrants from the week of April 10th, 2024. Do we have any licenses or permits? So no licenses or permits under 4C. We do have the authorization of the manager to execute a contract for a Bobcat and not a living one, though.
No.
And then we have ratification of council assignment of the American with Disabilities Act charge to the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging community. We also have the acceptance of a resignation of Linda Kuchar from the Parks and Recreation Committee. Just a moment to say thanks to Linda. And then the last item added by the manager, the lease finance agreement for the excavator and what's the other? Plow truck. So some big purchases that you are trying to get in at a better lending rate.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yep.
Yeah. With that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So one second, with thanks to Linda for her service.
There's a motion and a second. With that, thanks noted to Linda from council for her service. Is there any further discussion on this, Councilor Booton?
Can I have a picture in that Bobcat?
Sure.
Can I drive it?
No, you can't drive it.
This is for 2 Bobcats, correct?
Yes,
Can,
two
can
Bobcats.
somebody
Okay.
do a friendly amendment to allow me to drive it?
Nope.
We'd have to get more insurance.
Sorry, sir.
It's a litigious world out there, Michael. Insurance.
You can apply for a job.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of adopting the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
That's the
And
resolution.
I need to sign the resolution. All right. That takes us to our city clerk and treasurer report.
Just a couple things. As you all know, this past Monday was the deadline for nominating petitions. We now have the list of names that'll appear on the ballot. I got the warning for the school budget revote today, so we've got that information for the ballot. Council's going to approve the warning this evening, so I'll have that information for the ballot. All of this is going to our printers tomorrow. We will have the ballots by the end of next week. I've got 480 envelopes already printed and ready for mailing out early absentee ballots to those who have already requested them. We'll start putting them in the mail next week. By statute, they need to be in the mail at least 20 days before, so that's April 23rd. So, and we'll definitely have them in the mail by then. And once they're in the office, people will have the availability to come in and vote early in the office. We're obviously still registering people to vote. You can do it online. You can come into the office. You can still make requests for absentee ballots. Voting will take place on May 14th at the Civic Center, the auditorium, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I think that's pretty much it. We had a Board of Abatement meeting just before this one this evening. That finishes up the abatement hearings. We've had almost 70. That finishes up the ones that will qualify under the current statute that allows us to seek reimbursement from the state for the education portion. At the moment, I've completed the application in the spreadsheet. At the moment, it's a little over $38,000. With the ones tonight, will be probably 40,000 or a little over that. So that's good news that we'll get that reimbursement. That portion of the education taxes will be covered. So I think that's it.
Are there any questions? Councilor Deering?
So I know that when we first talked about the abatement process with the flooding, that we had a kind of a set number based on some of the substantial damaged properties. Is that number, how does that number compare or contrast to the number that we're currently, would you say 70 that we had?
There are multiple lists. There is some commonality between them, but they're not completely unanimous. We have people who have expressed an interest in buyout that have not applied for abatement. We have people whose properties meet the criteria for substantial damage that have not applied for abatement. We have done numerous things to call attention to the opportunity for abatement. Everybody got a notice with their initial tax bill. We put flyers out at town meeting. We've put stuff on Front Porch Forum. We've done a bunch of things. It's the same with the assessor's office has mailed letters to every property in the impacted areas, encouraging them to contact the assessor's office to have their properties reviewed so that we can make adjustments to assessments going into the new year, the new tax year. We're not getting 100% participation. We're doing the best we can for outreach. But there are gaps that we're trying our darndest to fill.
Do we feel like we're in a better position right now with the more finalized numbers that we have than based on the previous estimates that we had this summer?
Well, we've obviously got firmer numbers than, when we were working with our initial numbers back in, October, November, December, because it was the right thing to do, we were looking at worst case scenarios.
Absolutely. Yep.
And our numbers are not there. They're softer than what we were looking at worst case, but we also know that there are gaps in our lists, and so there may be more properties coming forward. I've already, since I warned the Board of Abatement meetings that we had tonight, hearings we had tonight, I've received 3 more requests.
Okay.
And we'll continue to receive them. The manager and I testified, Nicholas is like, if you don't say this, I will.
Say it.
We testified with Senate Finance last week about the possibility of getting an extension. Right now, you have to have approved abatements by April 15th to qualify for reimbursement of the education portion.
Right.
We testified for, potentially up to a year extension. I said at least to the end of December.
Right.
Would be helpful. I think what's going to happen is when new tax bills go out in July, people are going to get them and go, holy mackerel, I didn't realize that my house was still valued at X.
Right.
Because we can't read minds, we can't make those numbers up. We have to, it has to be a two-way street as far as communication is concerned. So I can imagine there being another wave of, bad choice of word, another group of abatement requests coming in late summer, early fall.
Okay.
And so having the opportunity to extend that period of time where we can seek reimbursement for the education portion would make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for the clerk treasurer?
Did I get everything, Nicholas?
That was all.
All right, so that takes us to our Liquor and Cannabis Control Board.
Nothing.
That takes us to item 7, the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple updates for the council. Myself, Janet, met with VEM today about buyouts continue to be a pretty heavy work stream for us. Today was specifically about the Swift Current program, which allows for some faster track buyout process. And we have 5 properties that the state has identified as eligible for Swift Current. All 5 of those properties had applied for buyout, but luckily only once was not part of our first tier of applications. So, so that's a good overlap. So we've already 4 of those property owners that qualify for a Swift Current had already been contacted about getting their applications in. These are properties that are either there's one on Harrington, there's a couple on the rest are on River Street. And then one was identified and they were reached out to today to get their application in. Again, nothing's been approved. This is not, you as council will still have the final say in what's approved or not approved. The goal here is to get people moving through the process who seem to be high priority candidates for buyout. And then if we get back science that validates that and the owners are interested in pursuing, we've cut off some time and they're already in the queue. So again, every time I talk about it, I'm just going to say nothing's approved. This is just to sort of get ahead of the game with all these residents. The second item is the Berrytown Yard Waste Disposal Site will open on Saturday, April 20th. Hours will be, and they'll be open Saturdays initially from 8 a.m. to 12. We will have flyer with restrictions on the use of the yard waste site on our website and social media soon. So keep an eye out for that. We are, this budget, if approved for FY25, will include full season use of the yard waste site. We are looking to help Berrytown identify volunteers. That's a good thing. That helps them keep it open longer hours. So if there are Berry City residents interested in volunteering to work at the yard waste site, they should contact me. You don't need to help anybody unload. You're just there to provide information, close up at the end of the day, et cetera. Just want to really excited this weekend to see many of you at the BOR turf ribbon cutting ceremony. It was just really a fantastic event, and it was so many residents there to enjoy the turf for the first time, and it was great. We had to kick people out at 1 o'clock, which was a good thing. They stayed till the very end, and people of all ages. Really, just a great crowd, and kids having all sorts of fun there. We are actively scheduling the turf. We are now, with Jeff and Stephanie's retirement, we set up an email account, reservations@berrycity.org. If people call Jeff or Stephanie's numbers, that gets routed to Roxanne. So we're capturing everybody coming in, but really encourage. It's a great site. Great reviews from the people who've been there. It's great for birthday parties. As someone who's had to book parties in Williston for my kids, I'm excited to have a site here for that as well. So really encourage people to get out on that turf and check it out. Good news, BADC was notified that our joint application for the NBRC Catalyst program was invited to proceed to the second round of the process. So great job by MA preparing that application, and we are working closely with her as that continues to the next phase. Met with CVRPC earlier this week. As you know, they're conducting an infill study and planning to have a report out on that on June 4th. They're planning to be here at the council for that. They're doing some really great work. And Janet, Tess, and I met with them trying to set the stage for that report out. And then just want to give an update on the congressional directed spending applications. I know Pat Moulton will jump in as well at the end. But the city submitted several applications. Including a match of the odd upgrades, which we were told is a qualifying application. Wow. So we're gonna, that's not gonna be the only way we pursue that, but we figured they told us it was eligible, so it's a good thing to pursue. We put in an application for the BOR roof, which is coming close to end of useful life and has some leak issues. DPW garage feasibility, wastewater treatment facility headworks, which is going to have a very large price tag associated with it, and then a resilient housing application connected to our Seminary Street project. So those are the ones submitted by the city, and I know Pat Moulton requested to update council on an application that the governor's office submitted. So if it was all right, I was going to have Pat share that at this time.
Is it okay?
Yeah, yep. Sorry, Pat.
For the record, Pat Moulton, Central Vermont Flood Recovery Officer. And yes, as the city manager indicated, the state has submitted a congressionally directed spending request to support Barre. The Agency of Commerce and Community Development has submitted this request for $45 million. Let me make sure I'm getting that right. And it would be to undertake housing development in the North End, potentially buyouts that we do not wish to proceed with FEMA, so we can redevelop those lots. Also create a childcare center and walkable grocery store in the North End, and also a connector road, as was envisioned by some early concepts, should there be some flooding in the future, so that that part of Barre is not cut off if Route 302 is flooded. It is in the queue, as those of us who are familiar with congressionally directed spending, this is not a fast process. It would be at least 2 years before that funding would be available, but it is a starting process. And should this was submitted to Senator Sanders' office, it would complement the city of Barre's other congressionally directed spending requests that included infill work for new housing. And we're hopeful the senator can see clear to get this through the Senate appropriations process. And for those who may be less familiar, if it were through the Senate appropriations process, that means it is on a list to be approved by the Congress at large, but it still means the city has to apply for a grant. These are not, the checks don't come. You have to go through an application process to obtain that funding in the final analysis. And there's a fair amount of work that we have to do between now and submitting that grant application. But this is an opportunity to get on the list, and we're hopeful that Senator Sanders can approve that request. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilor Dune.
Is there a match regarding that of any sort?
It really depends on the agency it goes through. We've requested to go through the HUD, Housing and Urban Development process, through the Community Development Block Grant Program. There may be a match, and we can determine at that time how best to meet that match given what could be approved for funding.
And do we
But
know if that
many times those requests do not include match.
and wonderful. Never mind.
Councilor Wozniak.
Just, Nick, I was taking notes. The ones that we submitted were the odd, the BOR roof, and what was the last one?
DPW garage and wastewater facility headworks.
And resilient housing.
And resilient housing, yes, thank you, for
And
seminaries.
I misspoke. The total request is 51,444,000. So it is large. Probably one of the largest that will be submitted.
And so all the requests from the city went to Senator Sanders' office?
Correct,
or-
yeah.
Okay, all right. Did they go to any other?
No, at this point, just to Senator Sanders. Yeah.
Another question?
This has nothing to do with flood recovery or CDS. I just thought it was city manager report thing. Stephanie has in the past run the summer meals programs for Barre City. The Aldrich does one, but the one at the pool, and there was one other site that I can't remember, Stephanie used to run. So just now, my Hunger Free Vermont hat, I just don't want that to get dropped because that's a very vital service for families in the summer.
Got it.
So, I can just imagine the agency sending an email to Stephanie and having it get lost. So if I can be helpful in making
Absolutely.
agency connections or anything like that, making sure that program continues.
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. If you could connect me with someone, that would be great. I mean, we have all their emails forwarded to a place where they're getting screened, but it's better just to
Yeah,
have
just
a
keeping
direct.
an extra eye
Yeah,
out.
that's great.
In terms of Jeff and Stephanie, and maybe let me know if this is a discussion that we should have in executive session, but is there a vision for the future of that, staffing that, or any changes or analysis of, where we are, what the needs are?
Yeah, I think we're undergoing that now. I think eventually there will be. Right now, the main priority has been continuity of operations. So the day-to-day scheduling, facility works, staff scheduling, making sure that we are very busy at the BOR with the turf. We are busy with events at Alumni Hall. So it's been the immediate priority is make sure that everyone who wants to rent our facilities is serviced, has their event ready to go, and that requests to schedule coming in are being handled and met. So I think that this is a chance to rethink a big part of our portfolio. It's not in the immediate term just because we're trying to make sure that we're just keeping the continuity up to date at this point.
Any other questions for the manager? All right, so that takes us to our first item of new business, which is approval of the FY25 budget for the ballot.
Sure. So let me pull up the. Do you want me to go through all the slides again, or do you want me to spare you?
Considering
I'm good.
Okay.
What is there, one change,
I would
right?
make the
There's one
motion
change.
that
One
the
change.
council recognize that the manager has fulfilled his obligation under the charter and presented the budget to the city council. And whatever the manager would like to do for the presentation is fine.
We will have to take
Let's get in the motion, the actual numbers, so.
Sure. So I mean, there is an open, real question that for your consent, which is the homelessness task force request. So I'll just jump to that slide. I met with the task force on April 2nd. I shared that, they had requested the 6 year-round accessible portable units. I suggested that a better starting point may be more of a pilot program of 2 portables at a lower rate that we identified. That would come to about 4,920 for the year. And we would roll this out in FY25. So that's just to say after July 1. So that's the only change in the budget that you've seen the last couple of weeks. So that would bring a tax rate of result in a projected tax rate increase of 4.93. And the numbers reflected in this motion incorporate that addition to the budget.
All right, Councilor Lozon, can you make that motion?
So you want to warn the article now?
Unless you want more
No,
discussion.
I'm fine. But I also want to just get in the record that under the charter, it's silly. The manager has a responsibility to present the budget. So I want to acknowledge that in my motion. And I would move Article 1, which would state, shall the Barre City voters authorize a general fund budget of $14,873,780, of which an amount not to exceed $10,187,152 is to be raised by local property taxes for the fiscal year July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Please double check my motion.
No, your motion is exactly what was on the warning that we proofed, but that's not what's on the slide.
Oh,
Yeah,
Or the amount to be raised by taxes. So I just want to make sure that we're.
I took
No,
this
I know.
right off our, and there is a
Doesn't
difference.
include the county tax. Okay.
Not to exceed 140.
So I just want to make sure for the amount to be raised by taxes, 10,187,152.
Yes.
And Dawn is doing this, so that's what I wanted to, yeah.
We've
okay.
done this before.
Oh, no,
haven't we,
no, I know. I just, yeah. We've been down the road where we have approved the wrong number, so let's make sure we're,
And it was horrifying.
okay. All right, so as the motion was made is correct.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second, Council Booton.
Yeah, where are the porta potties going?
So what I suggested was that one may do well to be placed near a church. That's an area where individuals who are facing homelessness tend to receive many of their services, meals. And so I suggested that might be a location where people congregate anyhow, and where people may be, where they may be monitored perhaps, and so there may be less chance of any vandalism that might occur. So that was one suggestion. I know that Eric has reached out to some of the faith leaders to inquire about that. And then the other suggestion would be, I suggested somewhere on the north end. We haven't settled on a specific spot, but I think geographically, what that would do is have, cover the span of the city. And so that's what my recommendation was for placement.
So City Hall Park.
I did not recommend City Hall Park, but that's not necessarily just my call alone.
Well, I assume we would have to put it on our property.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yeah, I because of the services offered at the churches, I thought that was a natural place where people are accustomed to going. They'll see it there when they're going for other services. So that's why I suggested that to me, seemed like a good location. The north end, I think may have to be on our property, or we may have to engage other property owners to see if they're interested, but.
Councilor Deering.
Dr. Finner's online. He's got his hand up.
Dr. Finner.
Yes, I just want to add that we're under discussion with the manager about a couple of these items. And obviously, two will be in the budget for now. We're going to collect other information. We're going to be checking with Montpelier as to what their experience has been. And after a few months, we may be back to council with a request for additional units, depending on how this works and what we find out.
Thank you. I was just realizing we do have 20 minutes to burn, so I don't know if it would be worthwhile just for the general public who may be watching this as a recording to get the benefit of this excellent PowerPoint presentation.
Sure.
I'm gonna hit the restroom.
Get there. Okay, so this slide shows the breakdown of the broad categories in our budget. That big blue wedge is our personnel costs, so that's wages and benefits of our employees. That makes up about 2/3 of our total budget. The yellow wedge is what characterized broadly as fixed costs. That's about 21% of our budget. And those are things that, we have little to no discretion about what those costs are. So that's things like debt service. I guess we do have sense in that we can take on that we choose to take on, but now once it's taken on, it is what it is, right? Insurance rates we're largely at the mercy of what those rates are and how, and incidents that occur. Things like vehicle and heating fuel, again, we're, need to rely on what the costs of those are in the open market. Sand, salt, we do from time to time think about tweaking this, but it's a roll of the dice. And things like broadly technology. We have to have email accounts. We have to have software. We have to have antivirus. We have to have phones, right? So those are things that the city needs to operate. Sure, could we cut our phones? I guess theoretically, but it wouldn't be wise, right? So that's why they're fixed costs. There's very little discretion about what it is. Discretion, and then the smallest wedge, about 13% of the budget, is basically everything else, right? Discretionary spending. And those are things like the bulk waste events that we run. Do we have to run one? No. Is it a good service? Yes. The new full season use of the yard waste site is another example, right? We don't have to do that. It's a really good service to provide that residents really care about. But if we cut it, there's no consequence of it besides angry constituents, right? So that's just to give you a sense that when we're crafting a budget, really the point of this picture is to say, we can really work around the edges on that 13% by and large, right? If we, we can, most of our wages and benefits are set by contracts that, again, we do agree to them, but once they're agreed to, they're set. And most of the fixed costs are what they are going to be. When we're trying to put together a budget for you to approve and to take to the voters, a lot of our tweaking is happening in that 13% that's left over. This is so that was the expense side. This is the revenue side. So the largest part of that budget, of the blue wedge, is the property taxes and pilots that we receive. That's almost 3/4 of the revenue we take in. The next largest, about a fifth, 20%, is our city generated revenue. So that's the big things here are the fees we take in for rentals of the Civic Center, permits, all those non-tax monies that are being collected by the city. And then that smallest wedge is federal and state assistance. And that wedge became a lot larger this year, thanks to the $1 million that we're anticipating and is in the Budget Adjustment Act. That's why I put in this table on the side here. You can see that how much this pie shifted from last year to this year. Last year, our property taxes and pilot accounted for almost 80% of our revenues. This year, it's 72, still high, but a 6% drop. And then the federal and state assistance grew from 1% last year to 8% this year, which again is that $1 million that was in the Budget Adjustment Act. So this also highlights that when we, the floods impact was really on that blue wedge, which is our largest revenue source. And so that was, that's why it was so painful. For among the many reasons it was painful, because it's our biggest revenue source. This slide shows the budget conditions that we were walking into before we even put pen to paper with the staff. So we were approximately a 5% contractual wage increases across all our bargaining units. The Green Mountain Health Board had promulgated 13% healthcare rate increases that we had to account for. That 497,000 in projected expenses going up, that's the those fixed costs that I talked about. They go up, they're escalators in some contracts. And so that's what that 497 refers to. And then we had, unfortunately, depleted fund balance due to having to front a lot of flood expenses, and of course the loss of grand list value. So it was quite a daunting picture as we started to put this budget together. We started, way back, I think our first meeting on this was back in September with the council, and earlier than that, I think, with the staff. But we, facing what was a really difficult situation without the knowledge that we were going to get any state assistance, we identified over $500,000 in very deep, painful cuts to services. And, things like elimination of cemetery seasonal help, elimination of the bulk waste events, yard waste events, things that people care about deeply, that we just are discretionary, and we weren't able to continue if we were faced with other more difficult decisions. So that was our starting point. That's a big cut in a 13 million plus base. There were a lot of really the pain was throughout every department. We luckily were able to restore most of those cuts, and so there's only about half of those cuts that remain in the budget, and luckily we were able to get, with the infusion of the state aid, those really critical key services that people depend on back into the budget without resulting in a wildly different new tax rate. We said at that time that in order to avoid that $526,000 in deep cuts, we needed that external funding, and we successfully made a case to the legislature to do that. There's $1 million in state funding in the Budget Adjustment Act that's earmarked for Barre, and so that was really the lifeline that we needed to present the voters a budget that's realistic and reasonable, and protected services without jacking up tax rates to unaffordable amounts. And then back in our initial meetings, the council asked staff to target a 5% projected tax rate increase, and we ended up right under it. We're now, this is 4.85 before the portables, and still with the portables under that 5% target at 4.93.
I have a question while we're going through this again. I'm more just curious. The $1 million from budget adjustment, what's the time frame for actually receiving the funds?
I think that's in
For the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that's all being assigned to operating expenses?
It's going to be all
General fund.
Yeah, got it.
general fund.
But no capital transfers or anything
No.
like that? Okay.
No.
Council Putin?
Since we're trying to burn through 15 minutes, Dawn, how much are we paying for Zoom? Actually, I'm not supposed to ask her directly. How much are we paying for Zoom?
Don, how much are we paying?
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
I will get you the answer in a second.
And the next question, because I'll be honest with you, I think we should make a swap over from Microsoft to Gmail. And I know that there's some hesitation about that, but you can use Gmail on Microsoft Outlook. So it would be a seamless transfer. And I'm wondering if it's cheaper because once you sell your soul to Google, you get a bunch of stuff.
Oh,
It's really wonderful.
They're already listening anyway.
I mean, yeah, well, exactly. I mean, if you just accept the selling of your soul, it's okay. I mean, you just move on from it.
Municipalities sold though. I
Well,
don't
that's
know if
what we
in
would be
our
doing.
jurisdiction.
That would be kind of what we're
Soul
doing.
of granite stuff.
So should we make a motion to?
I mean, we can have Chris look into that.
It's
I don't have any,
not gonna affect this budget, but
I mean, it may not affect the budget that goes before the voters, but, I think if we make a transition like that and it creates savings next year, that's not gonna hurt us. That's a helpful thing.
Right.
So I don't think, yeah.
yeah, because I mean, you can do it with the Google platform. You get Google Meets, and that's much easier, I think, to upload to Google YouTube. Like I said, sell your soul, and you get lots of stuff. You'll have Google Drive.
Right.
You'll have all the wonderful stuff that Google gives you
Right. Yeah, I think that,
for your personal information.
I don't think anyone's committed one way or the other to any particular operating service. I'm happy to have, Chris looking into that to see
It's okay, Don. You don't have to actually look it
what a
up.
transition would be like is, fine. And even if it's not reflected as a savings in this budget, if it's a savings against what's approved, then that's something that is only beneficial.
Yeah, the only concern that I would have is the stuff that we currently have. And once again, I'm just trying to eat up 15 minutes. And this is just part of that. The only concern I would have would be the information and the emails that we currently have.
Right.
I have no way of.
Yeah, it would be a project for
They
Chris
could.
before we made a move like that, but,
I think it would be a
He's-
really good move.
yeah, I think he'd be very diligent in looking at this, so I'm
And it would
happy
probably
to-
make his life a lot easier.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft is not as friendly, even though they
No.
also sell and buy your information as well. Just not as well as Google.
we can monetize that.
No, they could. You could try.
So,
Maybe I'll get less emails from spammers asking me
so we have,
very important message. Get them from Jake all the time.
I just need you to buy something for me.
I just,
this slide shows some of the key restorations we've made.
I have replied to some of those emails.
Right up, there's the planner position initially was one of those things that was in the over $500,000 worth of cuts, so that was restored. The 100% restoration of cemeteries seasonal staff, that one seemed to have struck a chord. We heard you on that. I'm not going to try to go there again. Fully funding Aldrich Public Library, I think, was something that took away from their budget presentation here. And then I think this was a great thing, which is the full season use of the Berrytown Yard Waste Disposal Site and the restoration of the bulk waste removal event as well, which I know are two very popular services that we provide. And I think it's a good thing to, we're taking baby steps with the town. They were obviously partners in the turf as well. And another baby step with the yard waste. And so I think these are all good. We'll do the easy things first and then, go
Change
from
the
there.
water agreement.
And the full list of all these restorations is in the back of the presentation. We might get to, but I don't burn another 13 minutes.
Burn, you had your hand raised?
Hi, thanks, yes.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, thank you all. I don't like the Google platform. It doesn't work well for me. I find that when the school meetings are held on Meet, and I'm just responding to Michael, I know you like it, and you can upload to YouTube quite fast with it. But for the users out in the public, I find that this Zoom platform really works better. We see people, we can talk to people. The Meet often has people only on telephones because they can't get into the meetings. So there seem to be a lot of those issues. And Mr. Manager, when you have the IT person look into that, maybe they could see what the school IT person's finding and compare with that use. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation. That's less than 2 minutes. It's not even 30 seconds. I'm really sorry. Here we go.
Thanks, Bern.
Thanks.
And can I ask a question? One,
Yes.
so about the Garfield playground,
Mhm.
when is that going in? And I've been talking with Ellen Siverett, like Stephanie recommended, but who will be our, I know you're working on that point person, and how will we find out information about that?
Yeah, so the Garfield, I was in touch with the company that was hired to replace that, and they're looking to be here next week. So we're still locking down the specific dates that they will be around, but very excited that they're going to be here so early in the season. They were
Great.
actually supposed to be here the week of the snowstorm, but so
Yeah.
for obvious reasons.
Thank you.
This slide highlights some changes that we had made since we had last briefed you during the budget seminar. We added $5,000 for a regroup messaging system, which I mentioned is going to be a Barre City specific notification system that we're hoping to be able to reach residents very directly.
When?
It rolls out, we set up the contract to run fiscal year to fiscal year, so it will roll out in July. That way, God forbid there's issues with it, we can sort of, it's easier to budget it on an annual basis that way. But yeah, very excited about that. We'll have, this will be like, for those who use cell phones, it's like getting a notification on maybe your Gmail phone app, for example. You'll get a notification or a banner just the way you do for there. We're looking to use this to really address the very difficult and rigid winter parking ban. So that's going to be a big one of the big uses of this. I know Clerk Dawes, if was still here, was going to be very excited about sending messages on tax due dates and all that. But so we'll use it for many purposes. But certainly parking ban is one of the ones we're very excited about being able to tackle with this.
I assume, again, 8 minutes. So I assume we'll be able to send an email to you, or not sure how that process is going to go. And regarding the taxes, are we going to leave your not your PDF files, your WAVE files for future tax notifications?
They're available for a small fee.
How about new ones?
Greatest hits.
I think I have enough for a full LP now.
We also added since January a public works asset management software that also very excited about. This will do not just fleet management, but also mapping of our infrastructure out on the streets. And so this will allow our crews out in the field to work with tablets and track work and locations of issues to be addressed. This is a great way to modernize that department and the work it's doing.
So will that mean any type of, like, I know that you can read meters from your, that's not going to do that. And is this going to have it?
We had a demonstration on a reader system.
Is it any effect to GIS?
Janet's GIS?
I don't know whose
if it'll-
GIS it is.
I don't know if it'll align with Janet's. This is going to be, I think, strictly a public works.
Okay.
Like where you drive by down the street and it collects all the meters.
No, it won't do that. We are, this will be like, this is the storm drain here, needs a work order, and here's the GIS location, and you go and you pinpoint it, and you send a work crew there. And then that, you service that storm drain on, July 4th, not July 4th probably, but July 7th. And it sort of tracks things in that way. It also does fleet management, which we had looked into. We had signed a contract with Manager Plus. We never implemented it because that happened right around the flood, and we canceled it because of the budget. But now this software is iWorks, IQ Works, something like iWorks, I think. It does both the fleet management, so now our mechanic can receive work orders from the police department for cruisers or ambulances from the fire department, and that's all going to be tracked through that system as well.
Well, it
So,
looks like we're 6 minutes away. We haven't yet adopted a motion from our warrant hearing, but we can finish this presentation. And I saw that Connie, you have your hand up? You may still be muted. I'm not.
If you click the hamburger symbol to the right of where the cursor is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, we can, Connie.
Okay, April 15th is Monday, and I just want to remind people of all the money that FEMA spent here and all over this country this year. And I know we all hate to pay taxes, but that $1 million from the state's got to come from somewhere too. And that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.
and the other addition since January was we had initially looked to save about $50,000 in PD overtime, and the chief and deputy chief had tangible ways to get there. We put this back in the budget because due to we had to also implement a staffing hiring freeze. They had 5 vacancies. The hiring freeze was instituted because of how dire the financial situation was. So they had to carry, unfortunately, those 5 vacancies. They're not going to be able to replace, we don't think, in time to account for the overtime that's going to be triggered by the police contract. So this is an area where, could we have kept that money out? Yeah. Is this overtime going to be realized? More than likely. This, not putting this back in would have just put us in a bad spot at the end of the year. And then the one positive that was made since January was we recognized $20,000 in additional dispatch revenue that we're providing dispatch services for some towns, and those contracts also have escalators, and this reflects those increases based on those contracts we've executed.
Councilor Jerry?
And we briefly talked about extending contracts out for dispatching. Is that something that we're still continuing to do to try to get more services with VSP kind of ending some of their contracting services?
I know that some of those, usually we handle those on when a municipality approaches us. And I think in each of the cases that we've executed one, municipality had an issue with its current dispatching. They contacted us, and we're able, we assess based on a capacity of our own dispatch center whether they can take on additional call volume. So we haven't actively gone out to solicit them. I'd known at one point there was a chance the town might be interested, but they're not. I think they've moved on to another vendor or provider. So we're not actively looking for it, but when they do come in, the chief's first thing is to check available capacity for call volume, and then we have been able to take on all the ones that have come in thus far. So this last slide, this is the one we did talk about, which was the request from the homelessness task force. The request from 18,000 came down to 4,920 for 2 portables. Next year that will roll out after July 1. And then so just the bottom line picture is we restored $280,000 of our very deep cuts back in. We put those back in the budget. We got $1 million of state funding, and altogether that results in a projected tax rate increase of 4.93%, which is under the target that had been set earlier this year. And that's it. I can start going through the appendix, or if anyone has a
No, I
question.
think we're good.
6:58.
I think
got
we're
it.
good.
All right,
So-
good.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further question or discussions? Pam Wilson?
No, that's the cursor.
Oh, that's the cursor. I'm sorry. Yep. All right. It looked like a hand up.
It was a hand up, it just wasn't yellow.
All right.
We could start playing like darts
All right.
with who gets called on.
Well, with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and noting that
Counselor
Counselor
Stockwell
Stockwell
has
has
joined us.
joined the meeting, and I think Counselor Shambell perhaps has dropped off.
Yeah, she dropped off.
And
Yeah, yeah.
if I just indulge and embarrass, we should embarrass Dawn by acknowledging the great work she does. I mean, you saw that slide with the headwinds. Dawn is, just handles this so well. One less thing really on my plate. So I think we should all embarrass Dawn and clap for her. And
All right, so that takes us to our warned hearing of charter changes, which is item C. So we have to do this, open the hearing officially at 7 p.m. To meet our statutory hearing requirements prior to finalizing the annual town meeting warning. This,
Louis brought the pretty colored version up.
yeah, so there are 4 changes, some changes associated with the elimination of school district language, which is could be fairly characterized as housekeeping to align with existing practice.
Well, with the voter-approved and adopted articles of agreement for the Barre Unified Union School District. So,
There's a charter change to move town meeting day to the second Tuesday of May from the second Tuesday in March. There's proposed changes to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in local elections except school-related elections, and charter changes related to separating the clerk and treasurer position and making the treasurer an appointed position instead of an elected position. Are there members of the public here to speak on these proposals? And John LePage, you were up earlier, so I'll call on you first. So.
Thank you. Is it my understanding that the change of voter age and the move of the town meeting day are part of the same, they're 2 separate items?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first I want to address the easy one, and that's the change of the lower voting age in local elections. And I have to soundly endorse that move. The sooner we can engage our public in the voting process, the better. And this touches on the other issue. It touches on what our city clerk mentioned about abatement eligibility, and people haven't come forward. Democracy needs participation. The sooner we start that in our public, and let's be an example, and the sooner we start that in our populace, the better. Okay, that's not much needs more said about that. We need this. And then to address the move of the town meeting day 2 months down the road is a really bad idea. It's a lose-lose situation. Not only would it result in lower voter participation for a number of reasons, one being that town meeting day is a state holiday, people have the day off, so there's no real barrier in terms of people's capacity to come and vote. That's not going to be the case in May. And another issue is the expense. We are doubling the expense of town meeting day vote by having 2 versus 1. And in a time when we are looking at increases in budgets, increases in expense, everybody in the city that I've ever talked to is feeling more strapped than ever in the last couple of years. And to increase the cost of something that is already under participated, bad news. There's plenty of other things, but that's enough for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. LePage.
Thanks, Sean.
And I can't see hands. Are there?
If there were any, they'd be on Nicholas.
Okay, great. If there's no other member of the public to burn Rose.
Hi, thanks. I agree with everything that John said. And I'll add that I do believe that adding 16 and 17-year-olds to our voter registry for local elections, not including school, is a way to involve parents. I've been through the flood and going out for the Poor People's Campaign, checking up on people. I have found so many residents in our city, which has a very high percentage, I think it's 51% now, of people living in rentals. And so many more newer people to town who have not yet registered to vote, who say, well, I've only been here a year, or I've been here 2 years. No, I don't do that. It's too complicated. I can't tell you the kinds of responses. And oh, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I went around doing some voter registration information, trying to get people involved in voting. And I heard the same kinds of things. But I think if kids are talking about this at school and coming home and engaging with their parents, with their families, with community members, that the interest in civic participation would increase. And what we're seeing now is a fairly low participation rate, especially when it comes to these local elections. So for that reason, that is what I'm really concerned about, is that democracy requires us to be engaged in it in order for it to work. And I think that staying with our traditional town meeting day is important, because we note it as an important day. And it is harder to get all of our signs in the ground because the ground is frozen. And this was really nice not to have the ground be frozen, but I still think that March is a good time to have it. And I appreciate all the work that everyone has done in considering these. And I guess we'll probably see what's happening. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Are there members of the public, before we pivot to council, on that would like to speak to these changes?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. McKenzie.
Yeah, good evening. I just want to speak to the charter change on the voting age, and I hate to disagree with Bern and John, but I would urge the council to drop that charter change. I could articulate a number of reasons, but I'm sorry, I'll turn the video on. I could articulate a number of reasons, but I think the two most important ones are that 16 and 17-year-olds haven't reached the age of majority in Vermont. And I think most importantly, they don't have the stake in the game with respect to city budgets as a taxpayer. And it's easy to vote on items that you don't have a horse in the race, if you will. And I think as we're looking at the next 2 to 5 years, budgets are going to be extremely difficult, as Nicholas has told you on numerous occasions. So I could go on, but I would urge the council to drop that charter change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Are there other members of the public that would like to speak to these charter changes? All right. Hearing and seeing none, I would just ask council a procedural question if you want to take these up one by one in this order or in group, or is there a preference on how to move these?
One by one is my preference.
Yeah, I'm
Seeing
fine with that.
no objections to that. Councilor Booton.
Yep. So first off, I want to make sure that everything will be on the ballot, correct? Versus the
Yeah, and actually, this,
And by that, you mean the entire language? would be-
Correct. The entire language would be on there because I
right,
know
and
with the school
actually,
stuff.
this might facilitate the discussion, so I'll pass these. Yeah, you've already got one. Yeah.
It was in the
yeah,
packet.
you've
I do
already
my
got one.
homework.
So, just so that all the language that you see on here will fit on a ballot. So, but what I wanted to point out is, so we're looking at Articles 3, 4, 5, and 6 on here. And they have been grouped on here by topic. So it's, Article 4 is the section associated with separating clerk and treasurer. Article 3 is moving town meeting to May. Article 4 is separating clerk and treasurer. Article 5 is the school district language. Article 6 is adding youth voting. So it's grouped. There are multiple sections that need changing under each of those headings, as you know from the very colorful charter language thing that we've been working with, but they will be grouped by topic on the ballot.
So in other words, the voters will weigh in on each of these questions individually.
Correct.
Rather than
They will,
as-
they will weigh in on each of the 4 topics.
It'd be a yes, no, and next to each article.
Correct.
But it will be written out on the ballot.
Yep, every
That's all
word
that
that you
matters.
see on here, every word that's been on the colored copy that we've been using will be on the ballot.
And moving on to my comment regarding charter changes to move town meeting day to May. Again, I do want to show support to that, as that has been something that the, staff has said that it's easier to budget for. And I think that other communities done it. And as for historical precedents, I mean, you can go all the way back to 1938 when Mr. Gordon was doing the thing for, you're not going to go all the way back
I
there?
changed it.
I know you did.
Sorry.
That's okay. And I may lose that one, and that's fine. But I do support that. As for the 16, 17-year-olds, obviously I'm not for that. In the state of Vermont, we've made it so that you have to be 21 to drink, to smoke. We went in the opposite direction. I quite frankly, having the ability to vote to me is, that's something that should not be allowed for children. We went to 16. Why didn't we go 15? Why not? It's not much of a difference. Both of them can work. You can work at 15. I think you can work at 14. So you're paying taxes. The other question is if we're allowed to do that, should we also open it up for landlords that don't live in the community, people that own property within the city? And I would say no to that as well. But as for the one that probably would pass everybody, I think the separating of the clerk and treasurer portion is a pretty good idea.
We're doing these one at a time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just,
It
oh yeah, sorry. I just went through the entire thing and
The
now
next one would
I'm,
be Article 2
I am
then, right?
all done. I am all done. So now I won't talk on it
If we want to
again.
get this rolling, I do see another hand up for public comment. Tina Ruthier?
You have to unmute.
Maybe it's an accidental hand raise. So we have the first item. So do we want to, can I entertain a motion?
Make a
On
motion
the charter
to-
changes associated with the elimination.
Oh.
Mayor,
Yeah. Oh, you
Can
just
you hear
came
me?
through. Yeah.
it was a retard move, sorry. So
not
I just wanted to
appropriate.
comment on the 16 and 17-year-old voting. Here's the thing. I have grandchildren, 3 of them. They're not even biologically mine. and I would give those kids anything they want, anything, except I would not sign a blank check for them to decide on my taxes, because our taxes are ridiculous. But you know what? The potholes on the roads are really good for Ruth Your Auto. I'm disappointed. And I just have to say, this 16, 17-year-old thing is like you guys are finding kids that you want to groom so you can get them to vote for you. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm so disappointed, Jake, that I have to say that. I appreciate your service. I appreciate Sonia Spalding's service on the school board, but I disagree with all of you guys' ideas because you are just burying our city and our town. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Tina. Barbara Druge.
I am opposed to 16 and 17-year-olds voting. I don't think children should be making those decisions for property owners in the city. If you're 16, 17 years old, do you think that they should be able to go off and fight for this country? I'd say probably 90% of you would probably say no. Are you going to give a 16 or 17-year-old a beer when they come to your house? Are you going to offer them a cigarette? Because the whole thing between that stuff is that their minds are not developed enough to be able to make a clear decision on what's right for them. But yet you want them to make a decision on what's right for me and everybody else that lives here. I think that's insane. I think it's a desperate way to try to get extra votes that people may think they're going to get. And I just want you to know, I am extremely opposed to it. And I think it's ridiculous because I'm going to tell you right now that none of you who would vote yes, or maybe you would, if you want to tell me that you'll give children beer and cigarettes because you think they're mentally capable enough to make that decision, then that's fine. But you can't have it both ways. It's either you're going to lower the age for drinking in the city and kids are going to be able to walk around with a beer in their hand, or they're going to be able to vote. You can't have it both ways. So that's just my opinion on it. And
Thanks for your comment.
I don't want my grandchildren at 16, 17-year-olds voting, nor do I want them drinking, smoking, or going off to war, because I agree at that age, they are not mentally capable enough of making their own decisions. So it's just kind of common sense to me, but thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Yes,
Barb.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I would move that the Article 2 shall the Berry City voters authorize a sum of $450,000 for street reconstruction and sidewalk improvements and the capital improvement fund. You said we were going in order. You said you were doing them one at a time.
No, the charter change is in order. We haven't gotten to that
That's
yet.
not on the agenda yet.
Oh, we're still doing,
the 4 charter changes.
oh, these 4. Okay, why'd you give me this document then?
I just handed it out so people could see that the charter changes are on there by category.
Okay.
All right, so the first one is the charter changes associated with the elimination of the school district language.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
There's a motion, and I'll give the second to Counselor Stockwell. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Next is item 2, which is the charter changes associated with moving town meeting day to the second Tuesday of May.
Make a motion to approve that. When it dies, dude.
There's a second.
Sorry, Michael.
That's okay. I know
I'm the
you
guy who
changed
moved
it.
from May back to town meeting
Okay,
day
I get it.
20 years ago.
Well done. All right, so that dies for failure of a second. Takes us to.
Well, he seconded
Oh,
it.
you did?
I did.
Okay, so we have a
reluctantly,
motion and a
but-
second. Is there further discussion? Council Wozniak.
Yeah, under discussion, I'm more interested, I've heard from constituents on both sides of moving it and keeping it in March. You know, I think that the points that the manager and the assistant manager made about the fiscal planning in regards to state budgets is very important and something to consider. And as far as participation, you know, we haven't had great participation in March elections either. It's been, you know, I think my first election, I was elected with like 127 some odd votes in Ward 2. So I would say, you know, what we're doing now isn't doing a lot to boost participation. And I have feelings both ways on moving it to May. So I'll vote for this just to more get a sense of where the voters are on this, because I've heard from constituents who support it, from constituents who don't support it. So I'd like the town to weigh in.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Oh, Councilor Deering.
Kind of on the fence with this as well. I mean, I think that, like Teddy, I've heard a lot of different, back and forth about what we'd like to do. And I definitely would like to see more of the get out to vote mentality, getting people to come out and support democracy. But I definitely would like to leave this up to the voters and let them decide.
Councilor Lozon.
Ditto. Like I said, even though quite a number of years ago, we did vote in May. It seemed a little, to me, at the time, it was a cost savings move because we had to have 2 elections. And I questioned whether it would be more convenient for people and easier for them to participate if, rather than have 2 elections during the year, school and then city, we had only 1. But that said, I buy into your attitude 100%, Counselor. You know, we sit up here, a group of 7, and once in a while you hear from folks at the grocery store, you might hear from on the street, might read things in social media on Front Porch Forum. But we very rarely get to the opinion of the entire city. Sometimes it might seem like we're getting the opinion of the entire city, but it's just people who are loud. So honestly, anytime, I'm not sure how our constituents feel about this, but what I know is, if you look at how I've always voted historically, I've always voted to put things on the ballot unless I found them morally reprehensible. And this is just asking our constituents, what would you like to do? Would you like to vote in May? Or would you rather keep it the way it is? So I'll be voting for this.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Right. On this, I'll just say that, you know, I think this is could have the impact of suppressing voter participation. And I haven't heard any compelling argument for it. I mean, we don't budget based on what the state's doing in a normal budget cycle. This year was exceptional. And calculating the grand list a few months before it needs to be filed isn't that onerous. So I don't see any reason why we would move forward with this. I think it's particularly if we're not absolutely certain that it's the right move. So I'll be voting no. And with that,
Councilor Stockwell.
Oh, yeah, Councilor Stockwell.
I think that lowering the chances that people are going to vote is really a bad move for us. That concentrating our efforts on getting out the vote for one day makes a lot more sense of our time and of our energy and of everyone's effort to get out the vote. So I don't support this.
Right, so if we have no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries.
Because we're split, we need to we need to call the,
Oh, we should have been doing that the whole meeting, yeah.
unless we know it's unanimous, but in this case, we don't, so we need to call them.
So Councilor Booton,
Yay.
Councilor Deering, Councilor Lozon,
Aye.
Councilor Wozniak,
Aye.
Councilor Stockwell,
Nay.
and I'm a nay.
Yep.
All right,
we've
so that
got
takes us to.
4, so it passes.
Still no shampoo.
So that takes us to charter changes to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote.
Make a motion.
Second,
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on this item? Council Lozon.
Once again, I will be voting for it. In the voting booth, I will be voting against it. And where you lost me was when the clerk pointed out that this would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote, but interestingly, they couldn't vote for themselves. So personally, as I said earlier, I look at it as my job to, anytime we can put something before the voters and let them decide, it's their city, we should allow them to do that. Having said that, I will be voting no, because to me, it strikes me as rather odd that we're saying, okay, 16 and 17-year-olds, you can vote, but you can't vote for yourselves. We'll use you for your vote, but we will not allow you to sit at the table. And to me, that seems wrong.
Are there other items of discussion? All right, hearing and seeing none.
Councilor Stockwell.
Councilor Stockwell, and then Burn Rose.
I do think this is an excellent time and an excellent possibility to give 16 and 17-year-olds a possibility to engage in local politics and for it to become habitual that they would vote and that they would be involved. I think that would be a great thing. 16 and 17-year-olds, a 16-year-old is different from a 15-year-old. They do have greater maturity. Their cognitive skills are good. And as someone who teaches early college students, often I have to say I'm impressed with their critical thinking skills. I'm impressed with their knowledge of the issues. And I think we're missing out by not having them be able to vote, at least locally. Thank you.
So Burn Rose and Councilor Deering.
Hi, I'm a little confused. Maybe I could ask Councilor Lozon what you said about that it doesn't allow them to vote for themselves. Are you saying that they're not allowed to hold office?
They cannot take the oath of office under the Constitution. Therefore, they cannot hold office. So while a 16 or 17-year-old could vote for me, they couldn't vote for themselves.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. I appreciate
You're welcome. Happy to
that
do that.
information. Thank you.
Councilor Deering.
So I just wanted to point out a quick fact that we have many opportunities for children to be involved with our community and our committees, and they don't take that opportunity. So I just wanted to make that point of note.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. Councilor Booton.
No.
Councilor Deering.
I'll vote yes.
Councilor Lozon.
Aye.
Councilor Wozniak.
Aye.
Councilor Stockwell.
Aye.
Just confirming that Councilor Sean Bell's not on the line.
Does not appear to be on.
And I'm torn. Aye.
So it passes.
So that takes us to our last one, which is the charter changes related to separating the clerk and treasurer
Make a
positions.
motion to
Second.
push that one through.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Thank you for your service.
All right, there's absolutely.
Wait a minute.
We're gonna Burn.
What?
Oh, Barbara Drudge, I'm sorry, and then Burn.
Fine.
Yeah, you got to come to the microphone.
So is it gonna be put on the ballot?
Yeah, it just
Yes.
passed. Just passed to be put on the ballot.
Okay, then I will go to jail buying them cigarettes and beer.
Let the record reflect.
All right, so that takes us to Burn Rose.
I'm sorry, I'm speechless for a second here. That's pretty hard to understand. I just wanted to say that there is no clerk or any treasurer that can ever be elected or appointed that will be anything like Carol Dawes has been for us. And I say that from the heart. She was here as our counselor. And it was when I first came to Barre, and I was very ill with Lyme disease, and I didn't have a very long memory. And every year I would have to go to City Hall and have them remind me how to vote. And I had been a voter since I was 18 years of age. And I just want to acknowledge that while we're separating those jobs that one woman did, it's taking two people to fill the void. And thank you, Carol.
Now, I want to, for the record, I want to say we didn't tell Byrne how to vote. We helped facilitate the process, yes.
Right, the process of voting.
That's right. You facilitated for me. Thank you. I'm
Sonia
sorry for
Spalding.
misspeaking.
Sorry, Vern. Well said.
My question is regarding the fact that there's no one running for the clerk position, and maybe you've discussed this and I had to step out to go to the Justice, Equity, Inclusion, Diversity, Belonging Committee. I'm sorry, I've probably jumbled the name of the committee. So I apologize if you've discussed it, but is there an option to make the entire thing appointed? Because without a candidate on the ballot, that seems like a precarious position for the city to be in. Thank you.
Council will appoint, correct?
Yeah, there are two options for filling the position. You can always elect people by write-in campaign. Somebody only needs 30 write-in votes to be elected. The same number of votes as signatures that are required on a nominating petition. If the position isn't filled that way, then council appoints until the next election. And then, so it would be appoint until next year and go back on the ballot for a 1-year election to get it back on cycle.
So, sorry, the appointment would be 1 year, but if someone wins a write-in.
Exactly.
Then they've got the.
So
yeah.
for example, let's say that people love
not
Carol Dawes,
hypothesize.
CAROLDAWES. Let's say people love Carol Dawes so much that 31 people write in her name as city clerk and treasurer. Now, you never know what could happen. So if 30 people write in CAROLDAWES, then Carol Dawes would have to decide whether she would like to serve for a period of time and continue her role as clerk. If she resigned, then it is up to the city council to appoint the vacant position. So it could just be a win-win, right, Carol?
And if 32 people wrote in Sonia Spalding, then she would win.
Well, but
You can't have two jobs.
can't have two seats.
I think
And
Mr.
she would have to
McKenzie's
decide.
attempting to raise his
I
hand.
think he's just clapping.
But he might just be clap. That's the clap emoji, Steve. So were you trying to raise your hand or clap?
I think it was.
Yes, I did. I'm not opposed to that charge change at all, but I assume it has downstream ramifications to the extent that two positions would have to be salaried, correct?
We're looking at something similar to what Barre Town did a few years ago. They separated their positions. The treasurer position became a part-time appointed position. It's a reflection of having a really strong finance department. And so that's a big part of the reason. I would say 85% of the work I'm doing now is clerk related. The treasurer related stuff is more pro forma, signing the checks, handling, opening bank accounts, being the point of contact for investing and things like that. That certainly is the kind of work that could be done on a part-time basis. It could also be done by someone who's already on staff, that they could carry that title and the relatively minor duties as part of their current work.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. That's helpful.
Council Booton.
Carol, you don't have to serve if you don't want to.
You're right.
But I do
Very
want to say
important.
thank you. I do want to say thank you for your years of
How about
service.
that?
We got a plan.
All right, so we have a motion, a second, good questions about what happens. So it sounds like write-in is still an option for a potential candidate under this language, and if the seat remains vacant following town meeting day, there's appointment authority, is that?
That's in statute,
That's
yes.
in statute,
Yeah.
so, and then that person would be appointed until the next election.
Yes, the similar to when a council seat becomes vacant and is filled at a caucus until the next election, somebody may only serve a year. The similar kind of thing would happen to get the clerk position back on the schedule. I do want to make sure that everybody understands with all these charter changes, we're probably not talking about any of them going into effect until July of 25. Right. Because, they won't go to the legislature until next year. So they wouldn't go into effect until July of 25 at the earliest.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. Council Booton?
Aye.
Council Deering?
Aye.
Council Lozon?
Aye.
Council Wazazak?
Aye.
Council Stockwell?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So that takes us to the warning.
I make a
Agenda.
motion to,
Well, you can, and then we can discuss. I have 14 different versions of the warning here.
Oh.
One with this section of the charter in it and this one out and this, and it's
So
been
they're all
crazy
in.
trying to prepare.
Motion to approve the correct.
What document are you, am I working from?
You
the
are
cor-
working from the right document.
Okay,
so is that the one that we have in our packet?
Yes.
yes.
I will make a motion to approve the warning as presented in the packet.
I would like to amend Article 2, unless there's an objection from the manager and the finance director
Who has
to read, who just left, shall the Perry city voters authorize the sum of $450,000 for street reconstruction and sidewalk improvements and the capital improvement
No
fund?
objection.
I
Having
will second
done the
that.
math, Nicholas, it steals your thunder a little bit in that it puts you a tick over 5%, 5.25, and changes the amount raised by taxes from, bear with me, 2.2189 to 2.2259. Reason being, I like round numbers and I really like smooth roads.
So I made a motion, but it wasn't seconded, so I will take that. That's the motion that I will make.
Okay, perfect. And I'll second your motion then.
All right.
Oh, I think Teddy beat me to it.
No.
What else have we got here?
You got that, Carol?
So it's 450 even.
450,000, up from 415,342.
All right, so there's a motion and a second to approve the warning for the annual March meeting as presented in the packet and as amended for Article 2 to authorize a sum of $450,000 instead of $415,000 and $342 for street reconstruction and sidewalk improvements in the capital improvement fund. With that, Councilor Booton.
Aye.
Councilor Deering.
Aye.
Councilor Lozon.
Aye.
Councilor Wazazak.
Aye.
Councilor Stockwell.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well.
I'm going to send this around for signatures. One of the 47 versions that I brought with me today. I'm so happy I came prepared. And Counselor Stockwell, next time you're in the city, if you would just stop by to sign the official version, that would be great.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's circulating. That takes us to upcoming business. So what's coming up, Nicholas?
We have the second charter change hearings will have to happen the 23rd. We are getting closer on some other buyout decisions to bring to the council as well. So we're going to try to prioritize those as well. A little bit further out, we have VLCT training for the first meeting after town meeting day. BADC is coming in to start doing a quarterly update And as I mentioned earlier, CBRPC will be doing the infill report out in June.
Are there any other items to preview for upcoming meetings?
Would council like to considering or voting the ARPA funds spent? In light of
Yes.
our challenges going forward, so that we don't have to worry about a calendar item?
Yeah.
There's no sleight of hand. We could declare it spent. We could move it to the side and wait. But then we wouldn't have the December 31st date looming over us.
I'd be open to seeing that on the 23rd, but with a little background
Yeah,
information
sure.
to understand what that means, so.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll get that ready.
The standard deduction.
Yeah.
And, all right, so that takes us to roundtable. I'll start with Councilor Wazazak.
I had no idea that voting was as dangerous as beer and cigarettes, and I'll pass.
Councilor Stockwell.
I'll pass.
Councilor Deering.
I'll pass in the cramp in my leg.
Councilor Booton.
I'm not going to respond to that comment. I really want to.
Then don't.
But I do want to go on a positive note. So at the turf ribbon cutting, it was pretty awesome, and ribbon cutting. And I did take my shoes off, and let me tell you, it feels like really nice grass, I have to say. And it's soft. And if you haven't done it, did you do it?
Yes.
No, you did. You
Done it.
What about you? What about you, Michael? Did you do it? You did it. It's amazing. So if you go up to the BOR and try the turf out, just take your shoes off and just feel the grass, because it's pretty awesome. Listen, I'm telling you. With that, I will pass.
And last, I'll say that today I joined the.
Did you pass?
Did I? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you announce and all of a sudden you're skipped over. What's up with
Ah, Councilor Lozon, sorry.
that? Thank you. Nicholas, great job up at the BOR on Saturday. I mean, I think that is something that's going to pay dividends, and it's an example of what can happen when the town and the city and BYSA, and thank you, Ronnie York, for your generosity to the city and the town. We won't forget you. So that was just a really incredible event. Letting folks know that, and thanks earlier to the constituent who gave the public service announcement about paying your taxes on the 15th, a day near and dear to my heart. But if you can't quite get your return done, just file a Form 4868. It's not the end of the world. Come down to the city clerk's office, and Carol Dawes, CarolDawes, write-in candidate for Barre City Clerk, can help you with your homestead exemption, your homestead declaration form as well.
Yep.
And she does that. Carol does that every year for folks who need help. So like I said, if you can't get it right on the 15th, there's always hope.
And you don't, while the 15th is the deadline for homestead declarations, it's not the drop dead date.
Exactly.
You can late file.
That's way down the road.
Yeah.
And I'm set. Thank you.
With that, I was just going to mention that the Vermont Bond Bank's annual capital planning forum was held in Barre City today, and was able to attend and just had some excellent presentations about climate resilience and new funding opportunities, and I noted how great Alumni Hall that room was looking, having been painted, and I think there are sound panels up there that look like artwork, and everything was very comfortable, and it was what a great use of that venue to attract statewide leaders to Barre for convenience like that. So happy to see that. And with that, I'll pass, and that takes us to our executive session. I didn't skip over you, did I, Sam? No,
you
okay,
asked
all right. I'm sorry.
No, I passed.
Okay. So that takes us to executive session on real estate. Is there a motion for finding?
So moved. Second.
The motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Is there a motion to enter executive session at 7:45 with the manager and?
And the clerk treasurer? Yeah, let's do it.
Why
Let's do
not?
it. She's not running again. She gets to come.
Yep.
And the clerk treasurer, anybody else, Nicholas? No,
that's it.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Motion carries.
Had to exit
Hey, there.
executive session.
Second.
There's a motion to exit executive session at about 12 to 8. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it.
Move to
Motion
adjourn.
carries.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Ayes have it.
Good night.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Good night, Gracie.
Yep.
Night.